to the Bird and the Bee podcast, coming to you from the Love Shack. It's 30 degrees in here, y'all, so...
See how brisk it is outside. Yikes!
Woo! We don't have any heat in here yet.
Ooh, all right.
Live from the Love Shack
My mucklucks.
on... Oh, yeah.
That's right.
On the Ripple Roots homestead. How y'all feeling?
Back again. Thanks for joining us.
You just heard an original track from our brother Ben. He contributed his beautiful sound for this episode and many, many more.
Yeah, the ball's rolling. We got logos, animations. We got, as you just saw, our nice intro. We have music coming. We're trying to figure out how to integrate that into the show.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I don't know. Things are going good.
There's so much to share. We have about an hour today before we start shuffling off, and we got to go into the Matrix for a little time. But we have a lot to cover, but I think we can do this.
Where do we begin? Because I know we have that vegan thing transition to talk about. I don't know if we should start with, should we start with the open mic thing? Should we start with...
Baby, let's just flow.
Okay, so this is going to come out for like a week or two. So yeah, I guess we could say that we're excited to announce a Ripple Roots production, our first one. Well, I guess this podcast is, but then we're starting a open mic in Plano at the Taste of the Islands, which you more so have like a history with them. And
yeah, 8 years.
The family, and they have like a little side room, and they're giving us full, what is it, carte blanche? Is that what they call it?
Yes.
Just to let us run it. So we're trying to get all these, get comedians out and promote that, and then hopefully that builds up into shows here and there, and then who knows what it'll turn into. Same with this podcast. We hope we'll just keep building it.
Whew. So we're going to warm up here. I'm just going to take a deep breath, and I'll ask you to join me for just a second. All right, let's get into some deliciousness. First, I wanted to just circle back to the books that I was plugging last week. The one that I was speaking on was Untamed, and I couldn't remember the author at the time, but his name is Will Harlan. You can find him anywhere, just plug it in your Brave browser. Anyway, it's Untamed, the Wildest Woman in America and the Fight for Cumberland Island. It's about Carol Ruckteschel, and she is my favorite wildest woman.
Tell us what you like about her. I think you mentioned it last time, but...
This is Chrysilla Pinkola Estes. This is Women Who Run with the Wolves. This is a woman's Bible, essentially, for lack of a better term in my brain right now. It's wonderful. It's myths and stories of the wild woman archetype. And if you're not familiar with this book, I suggest you get a copy. Hopefully, I gain a lot of copies. I can collect them all and put them up on our Patreon. Somehow create that as a gift for donation and or whatever we figure out with the book situation.
I don't know. I've never read either of those, but I've heard most of it through you, though. But
yeah. There's a lot of it out there. There are a lot of women that it resonates deeply with because it speaks to us in through the divine feminine. And
the only thing I'm trying to think, the only thing I can recommend right now would be to take magnesium. Like I don't remember the percentage, but I know the vast majority of people are magnesium deficient, and
yes,
it's just great for like muscle relaxation. Like it's good for your cells. I heard, I tried to look this up, but I struggled to find it. But I heard this guy who I really respect, Clive DeCarl, who was type 1 diabetic, and then he became type 1 diabetic after he got a vaccine, some type of vaccine. But then he was talking about specifically magnesium chloride, I believe, that's like to exemplary, I don't know if that's the right word, to show how much it relaxes your muscles. Like he said that's what they inject into people's hearts when they're having heart attacks, because their hearts are just pumping and going, and they like inject that in there, and it just like relaxes it and just eases you. And there's all different types of magnesium, what chloride, citrate, oxate, and they say some refer to some that we take it when you take it. Like honestly, we take it whenever we feel like we've been cheating on our diet a little bit, not eating
too much pizza and tacos.
And you feel it, like it it clears the pipes. It
It
just like
does.
it's like
Yeah.
Drano for you.
Anytime we eat conventionally a little too much out in the world
Ooh,
while
yeah,
we're out there,
it's almost like a little like life hack type of thing. Cause I'm like
it
you know
is.
you don't we try to roughly live like that whole 80-20 rule, which that applies to so many things. But yeah, eat pretty clean 80% of the time, and so you don't feel guilty eating the
Yeah.
20%. But
Dude,
so whenever
speaking
you
of
do eat it, I'm like, all right, I can eat some bad stuff, but as long as I follow up with some mag, I'm like, woo.
exactly, that's just one of our little philosophies. It really helps. Speaking of magnesium, I've been taking this Irish sea moss that Rahan got from, she got for the Taste of the Islands store. And I bought some sea moss gel from her just this week when I went to go speak to her, or last week when I went to go speak to her about the open mic and see what we could create together. And the sea moss, I'll put sea moss links for suggestions, but the benefits are incredible. Just a few. I'm taking it because I've had some autoimmune that's been triggered by some big stresses, but we're slowly eradicating that stress. So we have, lots of omega-3 fatty acids, B2, calcium, vitamin A, chromium, magnesium, vitamin B12. So if you guys are vegan, it's a wonderful source. And zinc. And men actually need a lot more zinc than women do. I just re-educated myself on that.
Speaking of nutrition, this is a perfect transition into this clip I wanted to play for you about. It's like some lady. I can't recall if she's from the FDA or she's like a Harvard professor. It'll say in the clip, but she's talking about how you'll just have to. We'll play it, but about how I play this for you, and then I'll play it on the post.
If you diet, you lose weight, right?
The number one cause of obesity is genetics. That means if you are born to parents that have obesity, you have a 50 to 85% likelihood of having the disease yourself, even with optimal diet, exercise, sleep management, stress management. So when people see families that have obesity, the assumption is, what are they feeding those kids?
Normalizing obesity, essentially.
No, I don't agree with her.
You're born with this kind of shit, and I'm like...
No, I don't agree with her at all. Okay, so you
Just
are
soft.
born with a certain amount of... There are some things that are inherited, but I am a firm believer that we can rewrite kind of like epigenetics of DNA in a way, that we can rewrite our bodies. We can, turn switches on, turn switches off through certain therapies and practices. And you are born with a certain amount of fat cells, really. And some people are more, depending on the kind of body type, the way that you carry fat, the way that you, wherever your ancient heritage is from, that has a lot to do with the way you store fat. So being incredibly lean isn't for everyone, but obesity is definitely an environmental.
Carrying fat and obesity, yeah.
Right. It's environmental and it's mental, but everything begins in the gut, essentially. Because there's that gut-brain axis, and I don't agree with her at all.
I think you might be more prone to obesity or just being overweight, but because I remember hearing this study about, like, specifically it happened with the Great Depression people, but like if you're, say you go through a big starvation or a big shock, so like a hunger type thing, and then like they say not the next generation but the grandkids have a higher rate of being fat because there's some kind of like cell trauma of like we need to hoard, we can't go through that again, and so you might be prone to it, but you can still like you're saying, you can still override your body, like mind over matter and epigenetics, and just trying to be cognizant of that versus just let me just shovel this in my mouth. And
okay, so we do have limiting factors, of course. Everyone has limiting factors. When I take on a client, we take all of that into consideration, but also I look at where it's mindset, it's environment, it's gut biome. Essentially, if you have a rich gut biome, your body will function in an optimal way. So a lot of that is just like clearing all the crap out of the body and then reprogramming the gut, essentially. And that also got him shaken so bad it's cold. So yeah, I do have hours and hours that we could speak to this,
Yeah, because
but
I mean, yeah, just explain. Yeah, because you were like a what were you like a nutrition trained or
well, I call myself
certified?
an intuitive wellness guide, essentially. A holistic practice is what my practice is, essentially, just for myself and friends and family and anyone who's willing to listen now. But yes, I used to have clients.
And we're open to on our Patreon if you want to, get a individual consultation type of things with you because she's very
I am
knowledgeable. You're
offering
very,
that.
yeah. Whether it's like I don't know, whatever your goal is, that you're so knowledgeable and like
Thank
because like
you.
whenever this might be a good transition to the vegan thing, but whenever we were vegan and you just when you're trying to bulk me up and like just you had me like on a regimen and
Yes.
which I just fucking hated eating that much, but
It's
just
a
to
lot.
get bulky. But yeah, hey, and just to inform people, like when we sold our own, made and sold our own CBD, like at market, just how much you would spit. People would just come to us with problems.
Yes.
They would just open like, oh my god, I got this, and I got
I'm also open to making custom medicines. If you want to hit us up on Instagram or wherever you can find us, I will. I'd be willing to create some personalized and blessed CBD goods for you, because we're not in business practice anymore, but for the friends and the family.
Yeah, because I mean we
Yeah.
make like oil, the tincture and topical, the shea. That's what I live and die by because that's how we
Every day,
stay so
baby.
young. Keep our skin smooth and yeah, just for anything. Even
Yeah.
just as a like just going outside when it's cold, like just as a like a moisturizer slash like barrier almost. Like it's like it's
Yes.
amazing. But
Yes, it does have SPF too, slightly, just enough to take the edge off.
yeah,
The natural SPF, it doesn't have all those nasties
yeah, because you don't
in it.
need honestly. I mean, obviously, you don't need like SPF like 100 set. Like obviously, if you're out. Because you're gonna get burned no matter what. If you don't have a clothing on, like protection, and you're just in the sun all day, like regardless, you're gonna get like your skin's gonna get
Yes.
affected. But
But like everything else, you can put your skin to practice and go out there and just a little bit every day. And as you increase your melatonin, you can take a little bit more and a little bit more. Some people, like a lot of my heritages, don't tan very well. Fortunately, I do. And in fact, speaking of which, I feel so connected to my ancient peoples right now with this Irish sea moss and my Eastern European hat
yeah, right.
with
You're,
the red
you're looking the
lipstick.
part.
I'm feeling it.
Look like your name should be like Svetlana.
I am Svetlana. Actually, she used to be one of my alter egos back in the day when I was an entertainer.
Svetlana?
Svetlana. I would just get in a Svetlana mood, and she would
Oh, just like
she
a
would emerge.
winter minx kind of vibe.
Totally.
Yeah, minx.
Minx. Yeah. Do we want to segue into talking about some eustress?
Sure. We should probably define what that means for people.
So there's distress, which is negative stress, and then there's eustress, which is more of a positive stress.
It's the same. It's EU stress, but it's the same EU as in euphoria. Like it's like it's good. It's like stress that makes you do better. Like it's like good pressure that makes you like just I don't know, rise to the occasion essentially. But
I dig the way you articulate that. Yeah, exactly. We've been doing a lot of that lately. So what it's doing is helping me correct this autoimmune inflammation that I've been experiencing as a response to incredible stress. But we're replacing it with eustress, which is all these things that we're creating and building. And we have all sorts of irons in the fire.
yeah, it feels like it, man.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's very exciting.
I mean, just this show alone, and then the open mic we're about to like start and get rolling, and
Yes,
and
building community.
I try to like we were talking about just trying to like visualize what we think these can turn into or become, and hopefully even just beyond what we can, beyond our imagination. Like it's like that's always what I was trying to do. Like yeah, I have like a set goal, like kind of trajectory target. It might be my Sagittarius, but then hopefully.
Yes.
Obviously that's theory, and then that's the map, and then there's the actual terrain as you go. It's not the map, that old saying, like, don't confuse the territory for the map, because things are different. Like, this is in theory and practicality, but then as things actually go, and then you might go a slightly different way, take different turns, and go way beyond than what we even like could fathom. So that's what I'm hoping for. But also without any negative expectations, or like, just being patient with it, and just trusting
open.
the whole trusting the process thing. And
Yeah. But as an Aquarian, I do, and I always have, through just honing my own intuition since I was little on purpose. I kind of have a future vision, like almost like when I'm in a moment that is meant. It's like I'm listening to my higher self, my future self, essentially. I'm allowing that open channel to speak with me. And if I'm walking that authentic path in following my excitement and not doing anything that doesn't excite me, and I'm in that moment with someone or somewhere, and it's almost like an Akashic record kind of unfurling, and I can see a little bit farther ahead, or sometimes much farther ahead, and so then I can just keep those visualizations, and most of the time it doesn't happen exactly as you envision, because there's so many variables that play into that. But like this homestead 5 years ago, I said exactly what.
Yeah, I was about to say, I used to be not skeptical, but just hesitant, but because you would say, and I just like didn't want to label something, but so I was like, yeah, but I don't know. And then
visionaries are visionaries.
Yeah, then after a while, I was like, okay, I'm like, it's kind of not that it's not undeniable. I'm like, all right, things, some things come to fruition, and then so then you tell me like, oh, I can see you having like a comedy special down, and I'm like, I'll believe it. I'm gonna at least keep the probability open, because I'm big on like the whole. I think that's like what like chaos magic is. Like, it's just a probabilistic universe, and there's a probability for some things are higher, some things are lower, and there's things you can do in your immediate life and external life that you can increase probabilities of stuff. And I'm big on that, Mike, because it's might not for sure going to happen, but I can do things that increase the chance of that happening. And so, like, yeah, comedy, the podcast, just our whole life in general, like any your health journey. I'm like, just keep doing things that increase probabilities of whatever you're trying to do.
Hell yeah, baby. That was a beautiful flow. I really appreciate that. Yeah, staying open and staying, like, just like I said, keep honing that intuition, and if it feels right, if it feels good, go with your gut.
Yeah, that's what I feel about, like, just even if you like number, like any like when I'm pumping gas, I always try to end in a number that I like, or just that has some type of meaning, whether it's like repeating numbers, or like my number is 1, 2, 3, 4. I see 1, 2, 3, 4. I see that all the time. Like, it's amazing. Like, how many times I don't look at my phone or time for like all day, and then I happen to look, or I'm like 1, 2, 3, 4. Like,
I can confirm that
when we left the library, I was like, I started my car 1, 2, 3, and I literally got to I was like, do you see the time 1, 2, 3, 4? And then I'm like, but so I don't know. Yeah, and just I like saying it's like you can't win the numerology lottery if you don't like play. Like, so you got to like interact with numbers and just be aware of them, because there's something to them. It's
there's
a language in its own.
Yeah, there's energy in that, especially where your focus goes, energy grows. So if you're in the numbers and playing with the numbers, I mean, that's real. Building blocks of the universe.
If you're just like a shut off person, like like living in Plato's cave, you're not gonna. There's no if you're in just dismiss everything. There's not a possibility of it happening. But if you're open, you're like, well, maybe.
Precisely.
and then that's the probability going up. And
I told you what Rahan said to me when we were standing there and we were talking about us producing open mic and comedy shows.
What?
She said that she was just speaking on this to her husband last week, and then she was speaking with God, and she just left it to God, and she said, and then now look, God brought you to me.
Yeah, we're not, whatever you want to call God, but
whatever you want to call God, that's the way I feel things work, and that's the formula that's the same formula that I follow is, speaking to it, writing it down, and then, like wishing, whatever you want to call it, praying, and then leaving it alone, and it will boomerang back as long as you're walking and doing the work. We've been busting, we've been hustling.
It's such a divisive word, God, and people. Because I used to be a hardcore atheist when I was a teenager, and you just hear the word God, you're like, oh. But then as I got older and just I had a lot of psychedelic experiences, just my own, even without him, like just spiritual experiences, and I'm like, okay, there's definitely something beyond this physical world, whether like some energy, some type of creative force, something that is just it's not just
Yes.
I don't know.
So I feel that that's just common language. Yeah, I used to be really I used to be really have a deep aversion to that as well, because I had a deep aversion to religion, and then when I was an angsty, angry teenager, I definitely stood on my soapbox against any sort of institution, and well, it's transmuted now. I have much more peace inside, and I understand a lot more now than I did, and I'm not angry anymore. So I do appreciate I just feel it's all the same stuff.
It really is. It's the same. I've never seen a meme of this. It's like the same beat, different song, or like different, and it's like a picture of like all these deities, like at a DJ table, and they're all it's all the same stuff, just different language. It just gets filtered through culture and language, but.
Agreed.
I remember because, especially growing up in the South, like growing up in Texas, like just how anti-Christianity I was. Like that's why I got this. I have this Darwin tattoo. It's Darwin's head on a chimp's body, and it's from this like magazine from like the 1920s or 1890s. I don't remember. And it was from a Christian perspective, making fun of like people who believe in evolution. Like, oh look, like we were just like we came from apes and when I was getting it, I remember I wanted to get an inverted cross on his forehead. I remember my tattoo artist was like, I don't know, I don't usually do inverted crosses, but I'll make an exception. And then, but as he didn't get to it yet, and as we did it, I was like, I probably won't. And then, but so even having, I love, because he did such a bang up job on it, like it looks so good. But I wouldn't get that today. But
you could probably see it in some of his modeling pictures on his Instagram, Son of Laughter.
SUN of Laughter?
Yes, or you'll probably see it in the summer when it'll be sweltering hot in here, and we'll probably be in our swim trunks and having a sauna day in our bikinis.
We're doing this
or at least my bikini.
It attaches to our seasonal aspect of the philosophy of our show. So
yes.
We'll have this, and we'll be somewhere we're like sweating.
Yeah, I did want to speak to that. Thank you for segueing into that. Seasonal living. We're all about seasonal living and spreading the word and the love on that. So just eating with the seasons, living with the seasons, allowing ourselves to be cold right now, because that's what the body needs, allowing things to die down, allowing ourselves rest, to hibernate as much as possible, except this winter, there's a lot of movement, a lot of building. Very interesting kind of, but we're still living in the cycles through our nutrition for sure, and allowing rest. Winters.
Well, yeah, and just intuitively listening to our body. Like I naturally like crave fruit less, because obviously it's like seasonal in the summer. But in the summer, I'm like, dude, that's like it's borderline become like fruitarians. I'm just like, dude, give me it all. Give me the fruit,
like fresh fruit.
I'm like, oh.
Yeah, but dried fruit, I really love dried fruit in the winter, because that's what we store, right? Like the jujubes and the figs, and that's what I'm naturally inclined to eat, because that would be our natural food stores as steaders and just homesteaders. Even I guess you might have a pocket full of dried fruit if we were still nomadic,
Yeah, if you keep it that long.
Yeah, but I do dig just eating the microgreens and the herbs that are still out there, and the onions and the garlic that still live throughout the winter, the super hardy greens, seaweed soup.
We kind of naturally eat more carbs. I try not to, but we generally eat a little more just like the starchy,
starchy
like
root veggies.
Yeah, the root squashes
veggies.
And shit. But I love them, but
yeah, the little one not so much. But like butternut squash, one of my favorites. Yeah, butternut squash soup.
Squash too, yeah. I don't know. I don't know if those seem more like summer squashes, are they, than like fall?
Well, okay, so they're grown in the summer,
okay.
But they're storable up to 6 months sometimes. It depends on the squash and the situation. Here, it's kind of difficult for us to have food storage because of just the humidity, because we live right next to the lake and the creek, and there's a lot of water. So mold is kind of, and then finding a dark, dry place. But we do want to dig some, like a cellar,
Root
so to
cellar
speak.
types.
And I'd really love to have an African type. I can't remember the name of it. I can't recall the name of it right now. But an African type refrigeration with the terracotta pots. And you take a terracotta pot, you have a smaller terracotta pot inside. And then you put sand, you line it with sand in between the two pots for insulation, and then you get that wet. And then as the water evaporates, it cools the food, and it creates like its own refrigeration. And you put a lid on there.
I've seen, some root storage with like sand too. Does the sand
That's what
eliminate...
it's sand.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and you
did
store
say that.
like potatoes. You store potatoes in sand in buckets or in barrels. Yeah, that's what we do with the sunchokes. The sunchokes are in.
Dude, I want to go crazy with potatoes this year, like sweet potatoes this year. I want to like.
They're there, baby. They started growing just a couple months ago because we got that heat wave, and so
Honestly,
I know they're there.
Yeah, honestly, seeing Francis is when we went there in McKinney when she had all those, it was just cut. Like I want like beds with that. Like
Yeah, she's the sweet.
we do great with those. Dude, when are we gonna dig up those sunchokes? We have like so many sunchokes, but I'm curious to see how they taste and turn out. But I mean, those grew like prolifically. But
I'm still kind of experimenting with them because it's only their second year, and then we had a vole issue last year, and they really just tore
They
up.
just like bit the bottom of the cane, and they would just fall over and like die. But
and dig it up.
I had to like catch them so many times. But
yeah, man, there's just a lot of abundance going on, and I feel real good about all that.
I want to ask you. We were talking about this, but I want to speak it and then see how we flow and what we make of it now. But
okay,
when I heard Chris Ryan talking about his parent, he talked about it in his book Civilized to Death, but he had his parents, and he was just talking about dogs, their relationship to like animals and pets, and they had a dog that it was like 4th of July or something, and the fireworks were going off, and then the dog ran off, escaped, and then of course they were super attached to the dog, and then they got all sad, and then they went to the pound, and it was a golden retriever, and then they went to the pound, and they're like, oh, there he is, we found Tess, and then so they went and got the dog, and then then they come home, and the dad's playing with the dog, the mom and the sister are playing, loving the dog, like, oh, Tess is finally back, and then one of their friends come over, and they see them outside playing with the dog, and then he's like, whose dog is that? And they're like, what do you mean? And he's like, that's not Tess. And then they get a call like a couple days later from someone down the road, like, hey, I found your dog, Tess. And then they're like, oh shit, that's so just. But I don't know. It's an interesting, just more like a moral thing, not moral, fable of like love and attachment, and like, does it have to be this one person or one thing? And it's like, but you had the same love for this stranger of a dog that you just, because you projected the old dog on it, you're like, yay, it's back. And maybe it's like trauma, you're like, I need to like get this love on something. But I just love that. I don't know, I've been thinking about that because I just love that story of like
that's so interesting. Yes.
Well, so what do you make it? Is it like, I don't know if it's just specific, because obviously people are you couldn't do that with a person, but I don't know, maybe it is you could say that with people about just being attached to one person, or thinking this is my forever soulmate, or I can only go on with this person, or like, say if someone dumps you, and you're like, someone's so depressed but then you're like, it's good to sit in that sadness, but then after, it's
okay, so
love is abundant, you can.
Love is abundant. Love is abundant.
I guess that's the takeaway. It doesn't have to be.
That's beautiful.
You don't have to attach it to this one thing, but I just love that story.
I think I agree with that love isn't finite, love is infinite, but what you said was attachment. That was the key word that stuck out for me. Was he was obviously attached to the idea of the dog, and it being close enough to, and probably just also that kind of tells me that he's out of attunement with himself and like connection, because I can feel my animal. I can feel Alpha Luna Fawn, and I would know if it was a different dog because of that like intimate connection.
I mean, yeah, you would think, but it's.
I don't know. Maybe it could happen
I don't know. I'm
to
like,
me,
I
but
know I could tell, but I'm like,
well, I feel like I could.
well,
I
I
just,
mean, yeah,
I don't know. There's like, and then
well,
maybe
she's like a mix too, you know, so
also
it's very
with the
unique.
word, right? Also with the word attachment, I feel that if you guys, know about or adhere to the law of detachment, it's to love something freely, but not be fixed, in accordance with this story, just not be fixed on that the fixed idea of that love. But I think it's beautiful that just to love freely, like he even loved the stranger dog.
Yeah, that's true.
As
I
much
guess,
as the
yeah, because
original.
we're kind of looking
So
at
why
it, we're
not?
kind of looking at it negatively. Yeah, we're like,
I
oh, how
know.
could he not? And but then you're like, well, it's kind of beautiful. His heart's just, he's like, hey, you're here. I love it. So
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of the human heart too, is how we acclimate so easily as human beings, and also I had the thread there, but just that we're able to acclimate so easily to change. It
yeah, I
makes
mean,
us. That's why we've been here.
that's why
That's why we're still
that's
alive.
one
We
of the
haven't all eradicated ourselves yet.
yeah, that's the whole Darwin thing. Like he supposedly never said survival of the fittest. Like his whole thing was I can't remember the exact quote, but basically, the species that's most able to adapt
Adaptation.
is the strongest one, and that's like the best human thing. Is it because we can literally live in fucking ice worlds or deserts and rain jungles and
Yes.
all kinds of stuff because we're so
And
adaptable.
everything in
But
between.
obviously, we manipulate our body, clothes and environment, but
Yes.
we adapt. That's our best thing.
And look back to the obesity issue. We've adapted to our toxic environments. Well, we
True.
haven't, but
Good point.
the
Western
obese
diet.
have to their environments and what's available to it. And then it's kind of about dopamine hits too. At that point, you have these food addictions, and then the soil is depleted. So like that goes back to your magnesium deficiency, and then. And this is why it's important to educate people on that everything begins with the soil. Everything begins with the soil. You think it begins with the seed or the plant, but it doesn't. It goes down. It's much deeper. That's the radical of life. But then also all the toxins, pesticides, all the environmental toxins, they create a ton of inflammation in the body, like PUFAs, polyunsaturated fatty acids. They create so much heat in the body, and your body has a really hard time flushing that or eradicating it, so it just stays in the body, all this heat.
Which comes from like
And inflammation is
shitty
literally just
oils,
heat.
right?
With shitty oils.
Yeah,
And
cooking
it's
oils
and
and
oh my gosh,
vegetables.
if you go to the store or you go to a restaurant because it's cheaper, because it's easy, you find all these hydrogenated, like really bioengineered, just awful oils in everything. Especially, okay, vegans. We used to be vegan, and we were speaking to that last episode, and I think we will dedicate a whole episode to it eventually if it flows. But in all of that fake processed vegan food, the fake meats, all the processed food is like really abundant in the vegan world. If you're not a raw vegan, or if you're not a natural
Junk
vegan,
food vegans.
junk food vegans.
Dude,
There's oils hidden in everything. All those salad dressings, chips, anything you can think of, like the frozen potato and pizza. It's everywhere. It's abundant in everything.
Dude, I used to work at a vegan fast food in San Francisco on Haight Street, and you think it's healthy because it's vegan, but I remember us looking at the oil that we fry shit in, and I'm assuming I'm assuming it was canola oil, but I just remember us looking at the ingredients, and one of them was like a 4-letter. It was like DHBX or something, and we're like, dude, this is it. We're kind of like,
No,
let's kind of put that over the back of our mind so we can keep eating free food. And we were all vegan there, but
right.
So, but yeah, and then speaking on that society stuff about us adapting, and like it just brought into my head that whole rat city experiment they did with mice or rats or whatever, where the first study they did, whereas they put rats in like a box essentially, and then had a little lever that they could hit that had cocaine in it, and and then they're like, oh, the rats just hit the button all day because but no one took into consideration the environment they're in. They're in such an unnatural, sterile thing, And then they redid it, and they called it Rat City, and they gave them like stuff to run through, little
Rat
wheels
City,
and
y'all.
activities, and just other rats, and then none of them touched the fucking cocaine button, and that's just very symbolic of us in our society now. Like we're you just stay in your home all day, hitting the dopamine button, whether it's video games or whatever, just
Yes.
shitty food
I
and
was just looking it up and I'm trying to find it, but right now it's not coming to me. But there is, of course, BHA and things that are approved by the FDA that the rest of the world is actually banned, like BHA and BHT. And we're one of the last countries that all of these ingredients in our food and in everything that you use, if you use conventional chemicals from your shampoo to your makeup to your deodorant to all of everything has these nasties in them. So
yeah, and the whole idea that I think
Yeah.
it's the FDA, but the whole idea that the food pyramid is essentially almost upside down. Like carbs should not be your grains, and carbs shouldn't be
Yeah.
the thing you eat the most.
Well, that's
and,
not really
Although I think
utilized
they have sugar
anymore.
at the
They
top, but-
changed it to a food plate, and then it's sectioned better now. I mean, it's improved. The food pyramid isn't really. It's not as popular as it used to be. They've kind of reworked that on their website. If you go and you look, there's a food plate, and it actually suggests more vegetables than anything else. So that's great. That's an improvement, right? Yeah, but the grains was definitely all those grains in the pyramid
It was like
was
bread and pasta was
that's
like
a
number
corporate
one.
that's a corporate push,
Ooh,
right?
That reminds me of how I had in my notes about I wanted to bring this up about the how people are just like, oh, I trust science, and like science is always right, and then but people don't ever talk about how like that like the whole, like I was saying earlier with the whole map and the terrain, yeah, that sounds good, but then the actual terrain of it is there's like vested interest, there's people who fund these studies, there's people who pay off these scientists, like the whole fat industry did that in the 60s or 70s about, or no,
Yeah.
I forget who, but that they're like demonizing fat. That fat's bad for you because it sounds bad. Fat. I don't want to be
Especially in
fat.
the 80s.
And then the same.
Yeah.
Oh, the sugar industry. That's who did it. People did that. They're blaming it all on fat. And it wasn't the sugar. That's the
Right.
processed sugar that's
But
doing
then we
bad.
came up with
this-
alternative sugars like sweet and low, and then alternative fats, and then it just was all downhill from there. Sorry, do go on, please.
And the same thing with the tobacco industry. They paid science, and because it's a thing where if you do studies, like if you can have like 9 bad studies, but as long as you have one that gets the results that the people who are paying to do the study want, then you can publish that, and just you can hide all those other ones. So anyway,
Yeah.
it's I don't know, things can just be hijacked, and like things sound great on paper, like politicians, yeah, they're doing good, but all these like who's funding all this shit, and who's like really wants you to say this stuff, but
We really went into the meat today. I like it. I dig it. So basically, what we're saying is to just live. We appreciate living closest to nature as possible as that is in this modern age and modern world. Just trying to be as low waste and chemical free as possible, and grow as much food on your own as you can, and charge your water, like simply just spiraling and oxygenating it, just living water.
I actually heard, I don't know how big of a difference it makes, but if you're in the northern hemisphere, you should spiral it clockwise because it's
Oh, you
how it
were
works, but-
saying that, and that's something I had never considered before.
I mean, it's very.
So-
I'm sure it's very minimal, but because when we
but I did
flush our
that.
toilets, they
Yeah, they run backwards.
spiral
Yeah,
clockwise.
yeah. That's I kind of dig that. I want to look more into that. But things like that, filtered water, getting a fluoride filter, taking cold showers. We don't have hot water here on the homestead.
Yeah, it's funny how
We-
in vote.
Yeah.
Oh, that was another thing I wanted to talk about. How actually, I'm trying to write bits about this, but how being poor is like trendy, like taking cold plunges, and
Yeah.
we don't, because when you see the fucking water heater go and you just see the propane or just whatever, how it's heated, just
Yeah, it
going
just runs
all
all
the
the
time, and I'm
time.
like, dude, that's
And
so
then your
much
bills
gas.
are
And then,
higher,
yeah,
so
and-
much gas. It just perpetuates the
and
problem.
Same thing with like ripped jeans and like grunge,
Yeah.
how like
Yeah.
you just naturally do that, and then
Right.
then all of a sudden the fashion industry steals that from the streets and like here's $200 ripped jeans. And
Yeah.
I remember being in I was on Haight Street once. I was eating fruit. Like I remember I think it was before or after work, and I was just sitting there. There's like a little market there, and I had like these really torn, faded boots that I wore they're my favorite boots. And this dude came up to me and he was like, "Hey, faded, torn boots are kind of, in fashion now." He's like, "Did you buy those like that?" And I was like, "What?"
In
I was like, "No,
fashion.
dude. I
That's so
earned
weird.
this like these scuffs and the fadedness of it." And I was like,
Yeah.
it's so like yuppie San Francisco. I was
Aw.
like, oh,
Well, here, I would like just add a disclaimer. I'm not judging anyone or anyone's choices. It's just that from my perspective, and there's a lot of others that have the same perspective, if we care about our internal environment and our external environment, one is reflective of the other because everything's a mirror. I think it really matters. It really is so beneficial to live closest and in step with the seasons and with nature. And just from my own personal experience and being of witness to our fellow fringe family in the way that we all choose to live, it's so much healthier. Like the proof is in the pudding, man. You know, the proof is in natural medicine and in natural living, natural foods. But they want to suppress that because that doesn't feed the agenda of the industries.
yeah, you can't make money off. I mean, you can in different ways, but you can't make money off healthy people. You're like,
Yeah.
we gotta. It's like that classic thing of present a problem, or you cause a problem, and then we offer a solution for it. Like,
What is that called? Do you remember the terminology for that? It's that cycle of create a problem.
I can't off the top of my head, but
Right.
but yeah, it's like this. It's like I think Monsanto does that a lot, where they poison us with all this fertilizer or the pesticides, and then here now, and we happen to make pills that treat this stuff, and it's just
Yes, yes. So I'm not saying that all pharmaceuticals are unhelpful to people. I know that there's a lot of people who find them helpful, but I do believe in the long term
there's a
that
place
it's
for them.
the
Yeah,
long
but
term in the long term it's problematic for your own bio environment, your biochemistry, and I feel like it's good to, if you need a little help and a little boost in it, to be a little crutch until you get on your feet in learning how to repair yourself and rebalance yourself naturally and through all of these alternative means of medicine. I think it's great, but in the long term, it can be incredibly detrimental, and then that in turn is incredibly detrimental to the environment because we flush all that down in our urine, and there's just so many other ways that these hormones that are in birth controls and in chemicals that are in most pharmaceuticals, and then these forever chemicals that are in the microplastics. It's just like we have to do everything we can nowadays to detox from and keep detoxing ourselves from our natural environment now. Like there's forever chemicals, they will stay. That's just fish, they're like so many parts per million now, like 7 or 8,000. It's just wild. It's like eating. They say that eating one freshwater fish in certain areas of the United States now is like drinking a month's worth of contaminated water. That's pretty wild.
well, I heard some study about. I think it's a little exaggerated, but they said like I think it was like per month. I think on average, like we consume like a credit card's worth of plastic almost. But there's like a little, it comes and goes.
Oh my gosh.
But what you're speaking on, the word crutch you used was perfect. That's what I was thinking of when you're saying that was, because like a crutch or a cast, like yeah, it's good for a little bit, but you don't keep the cast on forever. Like you gotta
Yes.
pop the training wheels
Comes off
off
in
and
3 to 6 months. Yeah. I think that allopathic medicine and homeopathic medicine and any alternative system and they're all wonderful if you can create a practice for yourself holistically. They all wash each other's hands. They all, help each other out, but there are
Shouldn't be
there's a
go-to
lot
all the
of
time.
things that allopathic medicine, I feel, should not have I won't shit anybody or anything, but are more
shit on me.
are more beneficial from other means. I think it's great for the technology, but the radiation is also a factor whenever you go to look into your insides and see what's happening. So I ask that people tap into their own intuition and feel their bodies and feel what's going on. If you can check in with your various body systems and just be like, hey, what's up? What's going on? And then look at symptoms and realize, hey, I might be deficient in this or deficient in that, or I need to switch this up, or...
Yeah, it's we're kind of speaking on that last episode just about intuitiveness and just, you know, like because we were talking about like switching diets and you just feel like, why do I feel like, you know, I'm a little lethargic? Why do I, you know, I need this or that? But
sluggish.
But you talking about all those like forever chemicals and microplastics? It reminded me of this lady, I think I saw on Rogan, where she was talking about, you know, because of all the plastics, like how much it's shrinking our taints, and like our genitals are shrinking, and our like you know, it gives men like man boobs essentially, and
that's
just
because of the plastic, the estrogens in the plastics.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of excess of estrogen, and
dude,
then
when you look at it through like almost, you know, kind of like an acid kind of look, and you just like looking around the world, and like when you see, like, you know, people use like a Keurig machine, and then they have like those little plastic cups, and then you get a plastic water bottle, you pour in the thing, and then the cup is plastic, and you're pouring hot liquid in it, and it's like, what the? And you're like,
it makes me cringe. Yeah, but also I understand, like, that's how you keep your life organized. That's how you keep you know, yourself decluttered, and that's your system you created for yourself. And I get it. I was, you know, kind of part of that before I became a low waster, when I wasn't being as when I was a little bit more conventional for a little while, when I was trying things on, living in the suburbs, and just in the wrong, I had put myself in the wrong environment, but then I had to come back to consciousness with myself. Sometimes we fall asleep, sometimes we forget, and we need to come back into remembrance. But yeah, and everything is plastic now, and I don't think people realize that plastic's made from petroleum, and you know, it just perpetuates the petroleum.
Yeah, that's another thing with just the power,
everything that comes with that.
The power of marketing, because when plastic bags first came out, they're like, oh, save the trees, don't use the paper bags, like we're cutting down trees, so let's use these oil bags. And then they're like, yeah, we're doing. And then now, like, certain city, like I think Austin does it, I think Dallas did it, like they banned plastic bags. It's, you know, obviously going to, you know, take forever to.
I think we've spoken on this before, but do you remember the theory? I can't remember where I heard or read it from, but and I intuitively, I feel this is truth in my body, but that oil is kind of like Earth's blood, and that it's not finite. It's not, you know, decomposted.
It's not made from dinosaurs that died
okay,
millions of years ago.
So you know, I don't believe in anything, and I stay
though.
open to everything, but it doesn't make you think that it's just regenerated a lot like our own blood, right? Because the Earth is just a mirror. She's a macrocosm of our
it's a natural
microcosm.
It's I think it's a natural byproduct of the Earth. It's not like we have because they said we hit peak oil in the 70s, and I remember reading that in my history books in high school, and I'm like, so we should be like on the down, right? Like by now, that's 50 years. Shouldn't we be out by now? But
yeah, I feel like that's purposeful restriction and whatnot. Just there's a lot that's into that, right? And there's a lot of other people who have you know, dived deep into that, deeper than we do. I kind of I don't like to, because I just have a feeling in myself, and then I just walk with that. If something feels true or if something feels wrong,
I'm like, it's not out of the realm of possibility. You're like, I could see how that's, you know.
Yeah, not wrong, but that I don't resonate with, you know what I mean? And I like to stay in the realm of possibility and positivity.
Yeah, and it's just they're just fun thought experiments. It's like like working out your body. It's like working out your brain. Like just when I look at the sun every day, I'm like, from our perspective, the sun is moving, but they tell us, you know, they're spinning and we're spinning around that. But so it's fun to just
Right.
run through the programs of that, the simulation. You're like,
Right.
okay, I could see how either could be true. I'm like, but I just have to believe what these guys I've never met tell me, what these scientists tell me. So I'm like, I guess
I do
that's
love
true,
that
but
about you, that you're not fixed in any idealism or ideology or belief system. Like, we create our own philosophy and systems, and I would like some feedback on this, you guys, in whatever comment section or reaching out,
or if
if you'd like to start a conversation.
if you want, just on your phone, you don't have to have microphones or anything. Just do a little voice memo, say something, and we'll play it on here. We want feedback, or just what you even like, about anything you want. Just want to say hello, but just record it, send it to our email at thebirdandthebee@protonmail.com. We try to avoid Gmail, and then we'll play it. You know, just get questions, feedback. We love it. So you can be a part of the show.
Yeah. We try to avoid it as much as possible.
Here's the
but
email
you can't
right
avoid, right? we can't avoid everything, and but we can make little changes or big changes and do as much as we can to impact ourselves and our environment positively.
I know that's the whole environmental movement is. They try to put it on the individual, like, you should stop using your bags, or you should stop using this, but no one's saying to the giant corporations, hey, you guys need to stop doing this, because you guys are the ones actually, have more of an impact. But like, just by,
I mean, there are people who are.
They try to pin it on us, is what I'm saying, the individual, but
yeah, but it is up to us ultimately, because every choice that all of us make individually impacts everything that is mirrored out into our exterior environment, and so every choice we make impacts. It ripples out. There we go. Plug back to Ripple Roots, and what we try to accomplish here is. Everything we do is impactful. It's and everything is connected. So there's nothing separate. So every choice we make affects everything else.
Yeah,
and
I'm not saying our actions
else,
don't have an impact, because I think
yeah,
you do.
but I know what you're saying, like putting off the responsibility strictly onto the consumer.
Yeah, just nobody blame. Yeah, exactly. Nobody blames. There isn't enough. I should say of
right.
about corporations. And I love the whole idea that corporations are, it's akin to Frankenstein. Like we created it. It's like a little entity we created. Even to the point where, like, I remember like a couple years, like 10 years ago, people were talking about corporations were trying to get the right to vote, and like they're people and they're legal entities. And then like Frankenstein, it's a monster we created. It's taken a life on its own.
Yes.
And like I heard this analogy of like say the CEO of Chevron like took an ayahuasca experience and saw what the whole company's doing wrong, and was like, hey guys, I don't think we should be doing this. We need to stop production. And then like that guy would be gone the next day, and like the monster, the thing keeps going, because I was like, that's not what we do. So get this guy out of here. So it's like Frankenstein. It's like
it becomes its own entity.
It takes a life of its own.
It does. And I'm not saying that old model or that current model is what I'm trying to say is that people who choose to live in whatever truth you choose to live in, just make conscious decisions for yourself, right? And I know I've been a hypocrite in that at times, but I do my best to stay conscious in a world where there's so much distraction and there's so much marketing and mind games and psychological play that we have to, as a people, as a collective, not just society, have to contend with in the modern world. And it's really, really hard to live.
It's like trying to be a healthy fish in a polluted river.
Yeah, but it's worth it. It's so worth it. I mean, when I go out and I kind of eat conventionally when we're out in the city and we just do whatever we want and we're not as conscious in what we're our actions, I really notice it in my body and in my mind. And